Greasing your snowblower augers at least once a season is a smart thing to do. Not greasing your augers could lead to some corrosion, seizing, or possibly some trouble for your gear case down the road. Hey guys and gals, welcome to Garage Gear. I'm JB. I'm working on an ARIENS here, but just so we're clear, these tips will apply to most two-stage snowblowers. Let's dive right in here. I'm gonna start by disconnecting the spark plug to prevent any unwanted startups. Also, because if I don't, someone will say something, and if I do, someone will say something. Whatever. I'm gonna tip the snowblower up onto some blocks of wood to help save my back. What I'm gonna do here is take a picture of the augers. That way, when I go to put everything back later on, I know exactly how everything looked, and everything goes back exactly the way it was. Some augers, if positioned the wrong way, may not pull snow in as efficiently as they did before. Next, we're gonna look for our shear pins. This model has two, and these gotta come out. On this ARIENS, they're 1/2 inch on each side, so we're gonna hold one end and undo the other. It's a great idea to clean these shear pins off, give them a quick inspection, and if they are bent or out of shape, replace them. Set those aside and don't lose them. And if your machine has multiple shear pins, you're gonna wanna take them all out. You can see now that the augers spin freely. And to keep this video spinning with the YouTube algorithm, would you mind hitting that like button? Thank you. It's a good idea if you have any grease coming out of anywhere to wipe it down and get it out of there. Okay, let's get greasy. Here's my grease gun, and inside is a tube of red and tacky grease. This grease is fortified with rust and oxidation inhibitors. It has great water resistance, and withstanding heavy loads for extended period of times is what this grease does best. Let me put it this way, if you have anything that spins, this grease wins. You could use black grease, marine grease, or just about any other grease out there, but what you gotta keep in mind is something is better than nothing. Now, as far as grease guns go, I just don't use them all that often, maybe a couple times a year. So I just can't justify spending a ton of money on a grease gun if it's not my daily driver. This one was pretty inexpensive, but what I like about it is it has this locking coupler. Pop it on. It holds tight with no leaks. Pretty cool. I'll have this grease gun and the red and tacky grease linked down below in the description. Now here's how we get that grease in. These little fittings right here are called grease zerks. These augers have two of them on each side, and I'm gonna start on the inside ones. From here, I'm gonna lock on my coupler. See, holds tight. And I'm gonna start pumping it full of grease until I see grease coming out of the shear pin holes or out of the sides. 1, 2, oh, it's already coming out of the shear pin hole. 3, 4, 5, and it's starting to come out of the sides. That wasn't too bad. Take it off. That's usually a good indicator that it's filling up inside. You can see we got some grease coming out here by the gear case too. Now I'm gonna lock it onto the other side. Give this side a few pumps. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, good. And here we can see it's starting to come out of the shear pin hole and along the side of the gear case. Now let's move to the outside ones. I'm gonna lock her on. Boom, she's on. Starts pumping. 1, 2, 3, cool. She's coming out this side pretty good now. Now we're gonna link it onto this end. Give it a few pumps. 1, 2, 3, 4, good. A good squirt came out this side. If we look carefully here, the grease is actually coming out of both sides of the shear pin holes. That's pretty good. Now what I'm gonna do is take a paper towel and just wipe off the excess. Ugh. Take another paper towel, get by this gear case, get it all tidied up, then by the bushing on the side. Perfect. So now here's an important step. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna give each of these augers some big spins. Like the Price is Right real spins, you know what I'm talking about? Wimpy spins do not work here. So you're gonna grab on, you're gonna spin them good 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now once you've done that, augers don't normally get to do this. What we're gonna do is spin the augers in the opposite direction as well 5 times. So here we go. That's 1. It's a little harder to spin them in this direction. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Doing this really helps work the grease around the auger shafts inside. Now the fun isn't over here. We're actually going to repeat these procedures. Grease itself is kind of like cake frosting on your plate. Once you move it out of the way, it stays there. And when we spin the augers like we just did, it may do this. The grease inside the augers now thins out and spreads out. And our goal now is to pump it with as much as possible so that way it's always in contact. Trust me, your snowblower will thank you. I'm gonna wipe off any excess that came out while I was spinning it last. And we're all good. From here, we're gonna pump them again. It's probably not gonna take much this time. 1 squirt, 2 squirts, 3 squirts, and we're coming out the sides, we're good. We're gonna go to this side now. Lock it on, 3 squirts, good there. Now to the outsides, get the pump. 3 squirts, good. And last side over here. 1, 2, 3, good. Now another tip I wanted to mention here is while you're pumping these full of grease, if you have an older snowblower, you may actually see water coming out the sides or out of the shear pin holes. That's a good thing because that means the grease is pushing all that out and you want grease to be filling up that cavity inside. Now the fun part, 5 spins in each direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They seem to be spinning a little bit better now. Now 5 in the other direction. Because of the way you have to spin it, it's just a little more difficult to spin them on the way up. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And again, just wipe any excess that comes out. Get in there. From here, what I did is I went back to my photo and I made sure that my augers were in the correct spots. I made sure that this end was pointing up and that this end was pointing out like it previously was. From here, what I'm gonna do now is slip in my shear pins, and sometimes you get lucky and they slide right in. And then sometimes you may have to adjust your augers left or right just a little. And if you can see it, boom, 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 just like that, just enough to get them through. Feed it through and boom, look at that. That went right in. And sometimes you get some grease that pops out the other side. Just wipe that off. Same thing here on this side. Doesn't want to go in. I'm just going to push it over this way a little bit and boom, there it goes, through. Wipe off the excess. Good deal. Now the shear pins are in, but the manual calls for a torque setting on each of those between 5.8 and 12.2 foot-pounds. So we're calling in the torque wrench, and I'm gonna set this to about 10. Now, if you don't have a torque wrench, hand tighten them down with a socket set to the point where they're no longer spinning freely. Now, on my torque wrench, I'm also gonna use an extension because getting into those augers is a little deep and hard to get to. So if anybody out there says, you shouldn't use an extension on a torque wrench, well, I use common sense, and these aren't going down to a super tight torque setting anyways. So let's get them in. Hand tighten this first, get my wrench on the back. That's it. Just snug enough. Same thing here on this side, hand tighten it on. Get my wrench on the back, start tightening her down. There it is, good deal. All right, so we're all set here, but the next time you run your machine, you may see some grease coming out of the bushings on the ends, maybe by the gear case on the sides, or maybe even the zerks. Just take a paper towel and wipe it off and you're good to go. This procedure only takes about 5 to 10 minutes to do. And from here, what you're gonna wanna do is lower the whole snowblower back down, reconnect your spark plug, and you are good to go. Looks good to me. Now that we talked about the how, let's talk about the why. Why do we even grease these auger shafts in the first place? It's a great question, and it's a question I get a lot here on the channel. But before I explain why, let's break down the anatomy here of the gear case and the auger shafts. So here's your gear case in the middle, and inside it are gears that spin these auger shafts. There's a shaft coming out of each side of the gear case that is covered by these black tubes of the augers. These augers spin on those auger shafts. If you were snow blowing your driveway and you accidentally ran over a large branch or a rock that had been covered by the snow, and let's say your shear pins and your augers were seized onto that auger shaft, that sudden impact to those augers would put a lot of force on those gears inside the gear case, and your gear case could potentially be completely destroyed. That is an extremely costly and time-consuming repair. Let's put it this way, the actual cost of the repair could potentially outweigh what your actual snowblower is worth. So keeping those augers lubricated at least once a season is a smart plan. Now, my dealer did grease these augers. I noticed a little red grease on the zerks when I bought it. Did they pump in a lot or a little? We don't know. Did they unbolt the shear pins? We don't know. Did they give them a few spins after they were greased? We don't know. I appreciate them doing what they do, but this is why I like doing what I do. Now, another hot topic here is grease leaking out of the zerks. Some people commented and said, "Excuse me, sir, your zerks are leaking." Hey man, that zerk is leaking. Is that your zerk, or are you just happy to see me? Many of them said that the check ball inside or the entire zerk fitting needs to be replaced. Well, I actually went ahead and bought some brand new zerks from the ARIENS website. Brilliant! And check this out. Here are the zerk fittings I ordered. Now, if we take a look inside the fitting, there is no check ball or anything inside to prevent the grease from coming out. Let's take a look at the other one real quick. Same thing, nothing inside. ARIENS uses these new style zerks because the old ones would rust up, get stuck, and you wouldn't be able to get any grease in. Then those old ones would need replacing. These ones remain open so grease can get in. So if some grease does manage to come out, don't have a panic attack. Simply wipe off the excess and check them once a season. For more cool garage gear content, click or tap the screen right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the garage.